Guys, it's Everything's Lightly. It's the episode we're calling Save Me a Spot at the Supra. It's where we invite people of note, people who are famous, to come in for the day, shoot a podcast, join us for a Supra on Friday night, stay the night, and do it all as a part of Keipi Restaurant and our work, First Things Foundation. Today, Pavel Schelin, Andrew Favorov, quite famous Russians. You can look them up, but Pavel is a philosopher, and Andrew was deeply involved in all the machinations of the 2016-2020 election, with Rudolph Giuliani approaching him to do some stuff. We don't really get in that today, but their names in the Russian world are quite known. And I offer a podcast called Save Me a Spot at the Supra. See what you think on today's Heavy Things Lightly. Okay, so can I just say you guys are my guests at Save a Spot at the Supra?
Hell yeah.
So you guys are those people.
Yes.
This is our new gig that we're doing at the restaurant where we invite people of honor, not of merit. We were just talking about utilitarianism. I think you have value even though, well, and you have utility. You have utility?
Value is still the judge said on that matter.
So anyway, we invite folks who have a niche in the world that's made them known, and then they come to our table. Well, they come to Greenville, we pay quietly. It's a thing, secret thing. And then they come and join us for this podcast and then a Supra on Friday night, which you guys are going to join us tonight. We take some pictures, but it's not like a big red carpet affair. It's welcome to our restaurant, but also
Let's mind the carpet.
Well, we can get a red carpet if you want. But what we do is, and then I want to talk about a lot of stuff, but what we do is we kind of seed the restaurant with something like, I don't know, a little light, a little Hollywood.
Yeah.
And everybody's better for it, especially if the people who come are humble about the nonprofit and trying to support us, and you guys are.
Of course.
So we didn't pay for your drive up, but if you want some gas money,
Happy to dedicate it. But I think I would like to say a few words about my super experience with you.
Good.
And I think I had a chance to experience it in Georgia, not in Georgia down the street from here, but in Republic of Georgia out on the Caucasus. And it's really remarkable how you managed to bring it here and preserve the spirit of the thing. And I think the spirit for the people that haven't experienced it really starts as you enter the restaurant. The general American restaurant experience, you sit around the table, everybody gets an individual menu. And then everybody from the individual menu picks something that they want to eat. Then they hopefully interact with each other, but currently, at least, I don't know, my experience, 70% of the people that continue to interact with their screens as they're sitting at the table. Now, when you are at the Supra experience, oftentimes you don't even get a chance to order. Nobody's going to ask you, but they're going to roll out the table and they're going to put a ton of dishes in front of you. They're going to pour a lot of drinks. The conversation is going to be free-flowing because the phones are not really welcome to be present. But the most remarkable thing is a automaton, like our friend John, will come to you, tap you on the shoulder, and do two things that modern Americans don't know how to enjoy. I will put it this way. First, stand up and say a toast about the people that are around you. And the toast can be a song, can be a poem. What's important that it comes from the heart. And the second thing a good tamada will do at least once or twice or three times during the evening is that it will ask you to stand up and switch the seats with somebody else.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
And to make sure that you get to experience a full thing. You integrate it into entire Supra rather than your seat and a person on the left and a person on the right. So if you, ladies and gentlemen, never had a chance to try it, it will be extremely freeing experience. So come on down. I'm not going to forget it, and you're going to love it.
Andrew, man, I tell you, we had a nice, Pasha, you were there too. We had a nice time in Florida. And we're doing it again. So everyone's like, did I sign up for this advertisement? Yeah, a little bit. But we're doing it again in November.
Hey, it's memory. So it's not just advertisement, it's memory. It just happened to happen again.
Yes,
so,
that's right. It's happening again. So one of the things at the Supra is, and one of the things at the restaurant and tonight is, we like to dig into things that normally you wouldn't dig into, especially with strangers, but also normally even with family members. It's sort of these high ideals, right? Things about life and death. That's a big one. Every Supra has toasts to life and variations of life and what life looks like for different types of people, but also what death is. I think I want to talk about that a little bit today. It's Pascha season now. People are going to be watching this during Pascha. We're just heading into Holy Week. It seems like a type of death followed by a type of life. I mean, but of course, there's life in the asceticism of Holy Week. Somehow there's even life on Holy Friday. Mm. So what do you guys see as, first of all, do you think we missed this conversation in the West? I'm calling you a Russian today. I know you lived a long time in Ukraine, in America, but you're born in Russia, correct?
Correct.
So let's go with you guys as Russians.
Sure.
Pavel, you're Russian.
I am Russian.
So have we forgotten how to talk about these things?
Yes, but again, I will stress that we here is not about West and East. It's about whole new world, and we have still remnants of old world in the West and lots of the East, which became a new world. So just to be absolutely clear, because otherwise it's a really easy way out and an easy finger pointing exercise, which we really are prone to do. So kind of reframing what I mean by we, yes, short answer to your question. And it is a sign of time in itself, which I think it's important because we just talk about this in a car and I don't know how grim I want to go immediately, but ironically, our culture, modern culture, by our, I mean our modern culture, fell into a trap of believing that by not making the most important choices, one can find peace. What do I mean by this? Let's say I will take neutrality stance. I will be neutral to this. I will be neutral to this. I won't talk about life about much. I won't talk about love much. Like really, honor, honesty, death, like any category which makes you face something which is really so much bigger than you.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's such a framing. I won't really talk about nation. I won't really talk about family. It came down to I won't even talk about really anything else. And these civil devices really help us not to talk anything, really help us to talk not about anything but ourselves. Because all this thing is doing is just restreaming me to me, like ultimately. And with ChatGPT, it's a whole other story, but ultimately that just creates perfectly echo chambers. So how we went all this road, we need to see where it all started. And it started by pretty understandable thing, because big things are scary things. And that's an interesting part. What is kind of the first thing which angels and God tell people who see them with the exceptional, let's say, gospel stories? Don't be afraid. Ultimately, when an angel comes to somebody, he said, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Well, we think, it's just some form of niceness and politeness, but if you just look at it with an open eyes, I guess it's something which scares us. Seeing something like this, it must be of a sort of nature which causes fear in us. Mm-hmm. So the big thing, the real thing, is a scary thing.
Yes.
And in our great wisdom, we decided, let's not just see scary things. Let's ignore all of the scary things. And by this, we will find peace. Doesn't work this way, but that's, I think, how we ended up here.
How do you think the peace is acquired? That I'll give you an example. When he was saying big things, I thought of two things that everybody generally struggles with: heights, or things high. The biggest thing, the sky. When I think of myself being in a plane, it's not normal. And the other thing I think of when I think of things low, I think of a roiling ocean. Water always is at its lowest point. And there's something about being on the ocean, super terrifying. And so those are the massive earthly things. One could argue, George Pusa might argue, you come to peace with that by being placed on the ocean and being placed high in the sky, and then you sort of, acculturate. Is that how we come to peace with the big things, by participating with them?
Yes. ultimately it's about participation and it's about honesty, which I think are kind of two integral things about Supra. Like, just again, trying to reconnect it with the theme of this evening. And what I mean by honesty is akin to, in that context, is akin to what Theotokos told Father Silo on our phone. Like, it's a very famous Orthodox story, and the audience is not allergic to Orthodox stories, so
Perfectly said. They're not all Orthodox, but they're not allergic. Orthodox associate. Orthodox.
Yes,
adjacent.
So I can freely use this type of references. And the phrase was like, basically long story short, this monk was in a state of despair, like, because of his own imperfections, and he was really realizing like this, like, how can one be saved? Like, eternal Christian question. And then the Theotokos came to him and she told him a very short phrase, which is just remember hell, but don't despair.
Yes.
And that's how I think is important to look again in the context of your question. So what we tried to do, we forgot about hell in order to find peace, and ended up in despair. Wow. Right? Which is really, like, our culture kind of does everything wrong. Just we have a short answer to what we do wrong, kind of everything, like literally in reverse.
So we forget the big things, we avoid the big things, but in the process, all we get is despair, the loneliness, the autonomous, hollowness.
The little things can't feed us, or if they feed us, it's not enough.
Yeah. Well, and remember, I think in the cultural terms, I think it's akin to what Pavel was saying, is to that famous line from the Fight Club. The individual packets of, remember when he on the plane?
Yeah.
So tied it together. And he says, well, we have the individual breads, the individual butters, the individual.
Yeah, that's such a great rant.
And every single one of them has an individual thing packed just for them. There is no community. There is no sharing of the plate. There is no passing of the bottle. All of it, which is prominent to the Supra experience of breaking these individual autonomous packages that we are individual serving of everything.
Man, I tell you, it shows up because watch tonight. Watch tonight, guys. At the end, the Georgian tradition is to always have more food on the table than you could eat. And there's reasons for that. And Americans are very uncomfortable with that because it's waste. And there is waste on some level, but we try to mitigate it by taking the table at the end of the night and getting all the, remember, it was 25 people that didn't know each other very well. They sat together. And then give leftovers. And we package it up. We don't package it off of your plate. You have your own plate. We package it from the tapas, from all the different pieces. But people won't take it. It's so fascinating. They ate together, but somehow now that it's boxed, they're like, they're afraid you touched it or something. Does this make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense because, again, the distinction clean, unclean, pure, pure, and pure is a corner, like it's the one principle. All sacred tradition. And spoiler, we all believe in this type of realities, whether we want them or not. So they're all based on this principle. And one of fundamental dichotomy. And one of the fundamental dichotomy is clean and clean, holy and holy. And
kosher and non-kosher.
Kosher and non-kosher. Like,
but what would make it? Remember, it's the same food that was on the table. What would make
change of heart? Also, in that context, change of heart. Like, it's again is like, one of the way I like calling Supra is like it's a gym for a heart, for a spiritual heart. And well, sometimes one set of exercises is not enough. It would be like, so sociological side of me would say it would be really interesting to run, a long-term, see like on which Supra a person starts taking leftover. Something like this.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Because the way
I also think there's a sense of it, of a death of Supra, and you're taking a little corpse of Supra back home.
It's not alive.
And it's not alive. It's in a little box. It's a coffin. For the Supra, you had a table, you had a feast, and then it's broken down to little packages, and you're taking those things into the frozen box or refrigerator, and it's no longer alive.
Well,
in Georgia, you don't take it.
No, but everybody eats it later.
Everybody eats it, but it sort of magically shows up.
By the way, I'll come back to the next Supra.
Yeah.
That's not.
But yeah, I think it's a trick of perception. It can be this, it depends how you see it a little bit. Or you can see it as like it's not that Supra, but it's a seed of Supra which you're taking home, and that's like, and that's it's a memory which you can recreate.
I can hear the practical people saying, "No, I just full, and I don't want any more food.
Sure.
And I don't want to have to bring that in my car. It's going to spill." But we know we live in the image. We live in the symbolism. I believe it fully. There is something going on that's a supra that's bigger than the actual conversation. And I do think it has to do with, it became dirty when I don't know
Who exactly touched?
who exactly.
Yeah.
Because at the Supra, you're my neighbors, and I know you now enough that whatever you touch, I can probably deal with. But down there, I don't know them quite enough yet. There's something like that in there.
So there is a question of trust, and there is a question of community.
Yeah.
Community. Like, actually.
Do you think, so in Holy Week, or even in the Supra, as we talked about, there's types of toast that are low.
Mm.
If you don't like low, they're meant to remind you of humility or smallness. You're saying on some level. In Holy Week, that's what's happening. Would you guys equate that with death? Is it I'm remembering my death when I'm being humble? Is that something that's going on Holy Week, or?
You can say, I think, yes, you're remembering death. Like it's one of the limit. And I think in a way, like following Helen, the Hope thing, Holy Week is a good mirror. That's what I think it is. Holy Week is a mirror which is put in front of us. And if we honestly look in it, by the end of it, we should be in a really bad state. Like in a really bad state of despair. Because there are no excuses. It kind of strips you side by side of all that.
Yeah.
And interestingly, not just you personally, but also you as collectively, like, or as any collectivity, because there is like an image of nations, there is an image of authorities, there is an image of wisdom, and they all fail. Literally everybody failed with one exception. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. So it is a mirror, like, and it kind of puts you in the depths of hell. Because, why am I connecting it? Because if you are not put in the depths of hell, there is no good news.
I see. This is the straight line as life. Straight line is the line of death. Yeah. In other words, you can't live. You shouldn't try to achieve this. You have to be ready for both the ups and the downs, right? Is that what?
It's akin to it. Like you can say, like, there is like even bigger things as it, and that's kind of what comes into, like, say, heaven, like the idea of heaven, which is for us in our current state not difficult. It's difficult to achieve. It's like when the line there is both move. So there is in heaven there is no flat line, but there is also no downs, and that, I think, is a key difference between, let's say, heaven and our existence here. So, like, it's a movement without entropy. It's a movement without death, without entropy and without death. But here, like, what's the problem? The flat line is our cheater's way to avoid this problem. So we don't want to have movement without entropy. We don't want to become folly, but we also don't want to experience this. You see the problem. So from these three scenarios, like, this beating of heart is way more honest, at least, than this kind of flat line alternative we've been building around ourselves.
There is a I think the Enlightenment allowed us to be very honest about material truth, but it did cover up all these spiritual honesties, you know? So, and I do think that's what helped me to wake up when I converted to Orthodoxy, is they were really honest people that I was meeting in the Orthodox faith. They were like, I'm a mess. And I noticed that you're kind of a mess. You know, it wasn't like, welcome to our church. And I really liked it. But have you guys had that experience? I mean, you guys are Russians. So, you know, one of the great jokes was all Americans.
John here is doing one of the best pitches for Orthodoxy, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we're a mess. Come on in.
No,
you're amongst your people.
No, it's still, but this is important. If you are not a mess, why to come in?
Why are you there? Because you're a mess. That's the whole point. You're at the hospital and you're getting healed. But I will say this, there's a great it's a trope among American converts. So think of American convert wasps or whatever. Who like, man, I didn't know I was going to Orthodox Church to get yelled at by Russian women. Like,
Yes.
you guys see that too?
Yes, absolutely. That's a big, most important trope, and that's actually an interesting story because on the face surface, there is not much wisdom and yelling at you. Like if you look on it, just pure, functional, utilitarian, salesman perspective of running a church, and they will answer, people will answer, we all will answer. But if you're putting in the context of big story, you can see different layers of meaning in this experience. And one of this is important to humble yourself. And if it's the first time in your life when you are truly getting humbled, well, accept it. Even if it's not just, maybe it wasn't truly just to be yelled at you at this moment, but how many moments in your life when you should have been yelled at, you were not yelled
In that sense, it is just.
And in that sense, it's just.
Being yelled on by babushka is this sort of,
It's almost like a blessing.
it's a rite of passage. It's like you haven't begun to even uncover the beauty and mystery of Orthodox until you've been yelled on by
But that's the thing, anytime you live with somebody which is not you have this problem. And here we kind of need to remember why we are in one of the reasons we are for each other. And here I'm borrowing from John's letter, Limacos, how you call it? The one who written the letter.
Of the letter.
John of the letter. And he writes, it's very interesting that not for everyone is he higher, so the, not loneliness, but seclude, solitude, but it's kind of, so not for everyone solitude is good, but also not for everyone, and for not everyone communal life is good. Here it's important to remember what's the purpose of communal life. It obviously has many purposes, but one of these purposes is to basically humble yourself, because nothing truly humbles you is as much as the presence of other people.
This is marriage.
and it expanded and it's fine.
And a Supra.
And it's interesting how the flip side of that, sort of the Gnostic / Enlightenment way of that, is Sartre's hell is other people. That's exactly the same thing.
Go figure out the truth through his own mind in solitude.
And demons, literally in Descartes' case.
By the way, yes, that's true. And he dissected a dog that was alive. I don't like that.
I might rather be yelled on by babushka. I mean, let's just go.
We tapped into good sources, but that's very interesting thing. So basically, we're all very proud people, and nothing really humbles you more.
All right, can I do a toast? Zach, I'm interrupting you.
No worries.
But let's do a toast. We're at the restaurant. Let's do a toast and say, well, I'll be down with that.
Please.
For now. Maybe later we'll give you Alverde at the table. You can have the table tonight. I want to give a thanks to all that we've been given. And as we head in, your guys will see this after Pascha. But we're heading into Holy Week. Tomorrow's Lazarus Saturday. And so I want to give the toast to the magnificence of the corpus. We've been given our body in which to live. And I want to give gratitude to God. And in that body, somehow we sit together and we share life. So to all we've been given, especially to these bodies that have to go through this suffering, that we may reach to Pascha.
God, you can just your marker.
And guys, we decided to do this podcast, save a spot at the Supra in the restaurant with all of its noises. And later on, I think even might come over here, our chef, and say hello or drop some food on the table. We'll see.
That's great.
Oh, please.
Just, I guess, something, and I connected with your toast. In a very weird way, yeah. A little bit weird symbolism. But I don't know if you had it, so just maybe tell me if I'm crazy, but your body is also kind of serves the same purpose as the other at the table. Your body kind of humbles you because it hurts, it strives, it's dumb sometimes, it basically challenges you. It challenges you. It has this whole elements of humbling, in the same way that you are not truly one with your body until this unity. In the same manner, you are not the one truly with the other, as in the same manner you should become one.
This happens. Maybe that is actually what the experience of life is trying to figure out how to live. You're right. The body humbles you all the time. It's never quite what you want it to be. And it's getting sick from time to time. So we know.
If I might chime in with a personal story.
Oh, this is good. Look at it.
John has signed up to run a marathon in a couple of weeks. So this experience is going to be very personally demonstrated.
So why did I do that? It was stupid. But I'm both trying to be pleasing to my wife, but I'm trying to live within this body. I'm trying to figure out if maybe this body needs this hell.
Unity between you and this body.
That's right. It needs. I need to know in my mind that I am not what I think I am, and my body's going to teach me. What a nutty concept. Who would want to sign up for that?
But the thing is, again, we break this all the time. I think that's always important, like inescapable part of this, that we don't have a liberty really not to answer these questions, like connecting back to where we were. And like the same with the body, the same with family, the same with bigger structures, but ultimately within yourself. Like that's, I think, is the ultimate first battlefield, and it's main battlefield we're struggling with. And yeah, in that sense, the other is like, which as you said, for Gnosticism, it's hell, and it can be hell. And that's the tricky part. I don't really want to do the mistake we kind of traditionalists and conservatives tend to do all the time, to downplay the reality of hellish element in the other, because it is true. But then the difference is like, it's precisely because it is hell it can humble you. It's precisely because it has this hellish element it can move you forward. So it precisely because it is this, there is so much value in what you do with this.
Yeah. Guys, quick break for this commercial. Guys, donate the first stairs by doing this. Nico, take it away.
It's finally warming up. The sun is out, the air is crisp. Spring must be any day now. Overwhelmed with that one closet full of junk? Have you almost been eaten by your clutter? It's time to finally go through those boxes and storage you've been neglecting. You'll be surprised what you find. Instead of throwing out these used items, you can donate them to us, First Things Foundation, in 5 easy steps. We partnered with eBay Charity to list your items for 100% donation when purchased through our storefront. First, find the items you wish to donate. Step 2, take 2 to 5 pictures of your item. Step 3, email me, Nico Heers, at first-things.org. This is where you can include as much information about the selected item as possible, including the year you originally bought it, worth, product type, damage if any, and size. Don't forget to attach those pictures you took earlier. Once you've sent the email, you can sit back and relax. We'll list your item for you and be in communication with any possible buyers. Once it's purchased, we'll follow up with an email and prepaid shipping label for you to attach and send your item off. Step 5. Package it up, attach the label, and drop off at your local post office. With those easy steps, you've not only cleaned out your closet, but you've contributed in assisting local visionaries in their quest for a better life.
You're describing also why you go to a funeral.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why you go to a funeral, is because you need to be in that place with the loved one who's actually experiencing. You are now experiencing there. Let's call it hell.
Participating. There's a super.
Yeah, participating is better. Yeah, as a philosopher, you should use the right words. This is why I never became a philosopher. I don't use the right words. I use a lot of words around the right word.
I like dating girls. That's why.
It's a loss. Wait, if you're a philosopher, you got to give up girls.
Pretty much. Yeah, they kind of stay away from you by themselves. You don't have to give up. It just happens. Yes, it just happens on itself.
Watches, you got to speak up for yourself. Sitting philosopher on this, but Daniel.
Humbling.
Someone dings Mary.
Wonderful woman. Right, a pleasure of meeting her.
There you go. All right, let's go into life then. So there's much more to say about death, and obviously they're connected.
Yes, exactly. I think the connection is the kind of the key, because that's maybe in a way we sometimes talk about this, sometimes talk about life, we rarely talk about the connection. And I think so. It's a connection about it. But go on. What do you want to tell about life?
Oh, tell us about. I was going to say how Pascha, which is a type of resurrection of life,
It is the resurrection.
It is the resurrection. But I wanted to talk about how that is connected to Holy Week. So it's really the same question, which is, what should we know about Pascha and life to be its connection to death? How should we know these?
Well, about Pascha, I think ultimately this is, as you understand, English here is useful, the resurrection. They should experience death and resurrection all of the time. Just recently, like you brought an example when you're breaking the table at the Supra and re-assembling people, what they're doing. You're like, at this moment, something is dying and needs to be resurrected again.
That's right.
So you're going through teeny little Pascha
All the time.
all the time. And like we keep constantly are doing it, like most of the time unconsciously, but like any type of even, metabolism in effect is a tiny Pascha within our own body.
That's right.
But obviously the Pascha is like, it's how you immediately, if there is a phenomenon, you have in a hierarchy of the phenomenon, you have something which is like the phenomenon, the logos, for which every other embodiment is a tropos of this logos. Yeah. And in that sense, the Christ Pascha is the logos of all of the tiny other Paschas, and it kind of integrates them and unites them and gives them life by B. Without it, they're like all others kind of fall apart. So that's one of this.
One thing that I found fascinating too, and we spoke this week about it, the Pavel, is that I've noticed that in American culture, the Christmas has a lot more prominence in a cultural celebration than Pascha does. In fact, majority of us don't even speak of Pascha; we speak of Easter, and there's rabbits and eggs and all this stuff. So it's such the resurrection of Christ, the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, gets sort of neglected in the noise, and the noise comes around the birth, but not the resurrection. And to me, it's quite a starking commentary vis-a-vis where the priorities are within the American culture, if you accept my premise that culture is downstream from faith. Whereas if you go to the Orthodoxy, we go to Romanian and Catholics, or Catholics. Let's cross into let's cross the European side of the ocean. I think you will see that Pascha is a lot more prominent and it's a lot bigger and more meaningful of an event.
But again, it's not about geography. It's, as you said, it's about faith. If you go for a Protestant European country, you will see the same pattern as you see it in Africa.
Well, I think in my experience with England, Christmas is the big celebration. And I think we inherited some of that. And I do think it's also downstream from what we've become, which is a type of consumer society. We haven't done quite the same thing with Pascha. But I will say, when you go further east into Orthodoxy, that was a big turnaround for me. You guys had, were you raised Orthodox? Not really.
Culturally. No, that's,
You had a conversion.
Yeah, I became, when I was 15, then I got lost in the wanderings of the modernity. And about 3 years ago, with the start of the war, I began to come back to the church.
That was a stark, and people who are listening on the pod, who are many converts, I think they'll say this too. You could be the most pious religious practitioner of anything American Christian Protestant, and you would not understand Easter at all the way that it happens in East, Orthodox East. I can tell you this is true because I grew up, my parents were believers. They were Presbyterians. And they're as close to being a Protestant real practitioner of Easter as really you can find. It still was not as big as Christmas, and it was also understood quite different. Because that was nice. We can't cut that. Whatever, even don't cut that. It's a restaurant. He just became human.
I know.
This all before what?
Turns out that this huge brain has a stomach as well.
Before the Russian philosopher was like, now he's just a human.
Exactly.
I love that burp. We might cut it. We might not. But I don't mind. There's a real it's a real granular change when you come into Orthodoxy. It really is that you feel Pascha differently. It does feel different in your heart, in your mind. It's a different thing.
Right? I can't imagine under any circumstances in the church, be that Christmas or be that Pascha in a Protestant church in America, around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, completely drunken priest singing hallelujah and salvation and partying and celebrating. And that's the feast.
Because in Protestant tradition, generally speaking, there is no true feast in the meaning of a Supra. Like, there is a shared coffee hour kind of thing, but it's not a feast. Like,
it's not, right? It doesn't have the contour. In other words, it doesn't have rules.
No.
There's rules.
And it's not that extreme. It doesn't have this intensity. It kind of, you can say it's the same thing. Like, it is a fire, like if you're using the same fire, but in one case it's a gigantic fire made of, big logs, and then the other it's like two tiny,
perfect. Right, perfect. This was my experience. I've told this story maybe once before on my pod, but I'm going to tell it again. I want you guys to have fun with it. And I think this is an answer to why it feels different, but I'll just give you my experience. My wife and I converted separately, but eventually got married, and then started to have a child. We had a child. And in the first year, it was about the end of the beginning of the second year of my Orthodox life with her. She got pregnant. And then grew larger with our baby. And then right about 6 weeks before Pascha, she had the baby in January, and then Pascha came. So during that period, during those 9 months, and then for another month and a half, you can imagine there wasn't a lot of, shall we say, marital relations. There wasn't a lot of the stuff that I had grown up really looking forward to every often with my wife, because I like, this is part of our manhood, right? And I was very happy because I understood why. Until right as she's having a baby, right in that conversation somewhere, my priest, I'm just learning, reminds us that the marital fast is part of life, and also you shouldn't be having marital relations during Lent. And Lent began about the exact time that I thought she was able to again have marital relations. Does everybody get the picture? You got the picture. And I'm staring down the barrel of another 6 weeks. And I went to my priest and I said, yeah, look, fuck. Come on. He said, let's cut it. I really said, hand over an economia. Like, I didn't know. Whatever, hand over economia. I said, no. He was like, what are you talking about? And he really said, what are you talking about? I said, I really like a blessing, sir. He's like, so what do you ask? You want me to give you a blessing to have sexual relations with your own wife? Just do it. And I was like this. Oh, so I can? He said, you do whatever you want to do, but I'm telling you, the church teaches this. You should not do it. I was like, I know, but I did. And I was like, 9 months plus 6 weeks. I was doing the math. And he's like, just do whatever you want to do. But I'm sorry, the church has the reasons for this. So don't do it. Of course, my wife gets wind of it. She's like, yeah, we're not doing it. We're doing what the church says.
Oh.
So another 6. Guess what, though? This is my point. Because we participated seriously in the fast, you know what Pascha was like?
Great.
I'm not kidding, though.
No.
I'm not saying that as I'm not throwing that away lightly. I woke up, entered the feast in all of its ways, and that week was bright. It was special. It was both carnally. It had carne. It had spirit, carne. It had all the elements of my body were now feasting. Just see what I'm saying? And I think it's because of a lack of a fast in the West. They can't understand fully what's happening in the feast.
Yeah, it's the same. You can say there is because of the lack of death, or the lack of hell. There is a limit of heaven or life. Like it's the same pattern if you want to follow it.
I see. Did the Gnostics, I don't know this answer. How did the Gnostics approach Pascha? I don't know the history.
Oh, and like, Gnostics are not big Christians, obviously. Like, and the general idea, the Gnostics are very anti-body, like body is bad. And your goal is kind of to escape your body. Like at least if you look in traditional Gnosticisms, and it goes through series of mutations. But it's kind of, this relationship with body, like, as this whole bodily resurrection makes no sense. Like,
It makes no sense. And also the feast would
kind of make no sense.
make no
Anything bodily material is deemed to be evil and corrupt.
But it's
so
important it was evil different per se. Like here is the difference. It was like Gnosticism, it was made evil. Whereas in Christian tradition, it was made good. The will made it back.
I think I hinted at that. I think I asked that question because it does feel like there's sort of two ways to go off the riff or off the rail as a Christian. One is in that Gnostic way, the other is in the sort of Dionysian way, right?
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
You're all up here or you're all down here. So how's that connected to Pascha? I guess it's a proper feast.
It is a proper feast after a proper fast, and it is ultimately this unity, like it's shown unity. That's why I think it's absolutely the key, and like historically many characters were about precisely the bodily resurrection. As you might know, like even in a culture, heck, even among traditionalism now, Western culture, effectively people have no problems treating Jesus like a philosopher, teacher, like, interesting hippie social activist, and this historical figure, etc., etc., etc. The bodily resurrection thing, that's where the challenge comes.
Yeah, everything's off.
That's why it's so telling with Book of Thomas, which is actually full of
episode.
The Gospel of Thomas. Sorry,
Not the Gospel. The Gospel. You want to talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me finish that. So the Gospel of Thomas has only the sayings of Christ, but it doesn't have any embodied experiences of Christ.
Okay, so that's what makes Gospel of Thomas as a Gnostic text.
Yeah,
It's just to be clear.
And that's what makes it. That's why it doesn't have the body. It doesn't have the life of Christ. It just has his wisdom.
And the proper knowledge.
The knowledge, yes. And that's why the ecumenical college or council has rejected it and didn't include it in the canon. But if I was fascinated by it for a long time because I thought that the wisdom there is very truly deep and real, and I couldn't understand, and it really spoke to me, let's put it this way, and I couldn't understand why would the church exclude it from the canon.
And that's why.
Is it so in this phrase, again, we're not picking on people, we're picking apart these ideas of culture. So I took Jesus into my heart. There's a lot of thoughts in that.
Oh, absolutely.
There's not much bodily in that, right?
Well, depends.
That salvation is Gnostic.
Here's a problem. The problem is, technically, it is true. Like, if you understand what heart is, if you understand what taking is, and what taking Jesus is, like, it's absolutely correct phrase. You can say every time you go to communion, you're taking Jesus in your heart. Yeah, so the problem is, like, how you understand. But if you consider it like, I am understanding conceptually the importance of these ideas, then, like, obviously, it's kind of missing the mark, which is very tricky nowadays. And I think it's kind of, whenever we talk, that's why I like your podcast, actually. I think it has the perfect name, heavy thing slightly. And I think it is also, in a way, about proper names. So,
This is I'm very thankful you said it that way, because I think it's what we're trying to do. It's just name things for the common person's common life.
Yeah.
What is that thing?
or just notice this thing. Like names, like I think it's even trickier, like the true, not terror, but magic, like both, actually both, if you understand what magic is that we actually keep practicing these things every single day of our life, everyone. So it's not like you're outside of this game. There is no neutrality. Like, I think that's one of the most terrifying things which isn't Christianity, and it has many elements of this, the parable of talents. It's preached about there is no neutrality. It's a parable that, like, So it's a saying in Marx that the one who is not collecting, sorry, I know it in Russian, don't know it in English, the official translation. Yeah, but I don't read the gospel in English. So basically, when the one who doesn't collect with me spreads it away. So again, the idea is that there is no neutrality. You can remember here the terrifying image of in front of Dante's hell. Like, it's not in the gospel, but it's kind of akin to it. That there is, like, there is heaven and hell, but there is also the Satan's front of hell for those who didn't make a decision. And it's bad. What is this? It's not a good place. And so on and so forth. In Apocalypse, there is talking about this lukewarmness of the heart. And that's kind of, in a way, modernity with all of its flashy, significant technological progress, power over measure, all this type. But in the depths, there is this desire for getting exactly this economy for your own lukewarmness. Yeah. I don't want to deal with the big thing. Let me ignore it. Please let me ignore it. The problem is you can't ignore it because by your nature, you are part of it. And that's, I think, the most.
Can you go the other way? And can you spend too much time on the big things? Can you dry out?
If your big thing, if you disintegrate big thing from areas, if you create it's a big thing for itself. And here is like Martin shows from the event you've been saying, which I think is important. Like, you don't orient your life around idea, but around an embodied idea. And that's it. It's about this connection. So it's not idea for an idea's sake. You're not sacrificing anything for an idea of Christ. It's impossible. For a person of Christ, because a person of Christ is simultaneously extremely big, because you are very huge, simultaneous, like you are gigantic, but also you are very not huge. And any other person, that's this kind of paradox, like if you want to call it quantum paradox of reality. And any breakage of this paradox kind of leads you to one mistake.
And so would that manifest as a kind of
it represents into fast for fasting.
Fast for fasting's sake.
Yeah.
Rules for rules' sake.
Yeah. It's a form without substance, actually.
Yeah. Do you fast for the Christ or do you fast for the fast's sake?
And that's where the big idea becomes so controlling.
Yes. And then it becomes tyrannical. You can just say straight away.
Right.
And hollow and oppressive and all of these horrible things which usually addressed to traditionalists. And let's be honest, we can have this tendency. Like, there is this inherent danger within us to, and by us I mean like this group in the sense of all traditional civilizations, which kind of trying to build upon certain traditions. That is inherent danger in every tradition, which it's not mistake-proof in a sense that it's very easy to lose your substance and just focus on your forms.
And this is sort of the royal path that is life, right? It's finding a way between, I think, of love and truth.
Spoiler. Yes. Oops. Yes. Yeah, love integrates ours.
So how does this conversation right here?
Wonderful. Like, I like that it's in person. Like we talked with you several times online, and yes, it is a walking stick for invalid, effectively. That's what it is. But it's nice to feel healthy. I would put it this way.
It's not too big. I think sometimes we can get too big.
I know, it's audience problem. I think it's important, like that's the beauty of the real conversation right now. It's the conversation which is happening around this particular table, which is actually having physical forms. This glass is me, yours. So we're having a very good...
Yeah, I think so too. I'm thankful.
And I think it's a lot more organic in that sense. It's organic and it's real versus the conversation through Zoom or whatever is more virtual. You don't populate the same place and physical place, and thus you are removed from each other, and that
feel it.
You are on that path of disembodiment.
That's right.
You can walk around it, but you need to put a lot of effort into it, and it still doesn't bring you the same level of intensity.
But it can bring you gifts.
Oh, you can bring.
I think there are gifts.
Oh, absolutely.
In the electronic conversation, if we were on screen.
Yeah, I think it's a very useful metaphor here. Like, imagine. It's kind of relates to fast feasting tradition, etc. So imagine a man whose leg became dry and you can't really walk on it. And then you have this big stick, like, I don't know how you call it in English, crutch. You have a crutch. Is crutch bad? No. Crutch is you're getting a lot of things from this crutch. You're getting the movement from this crutch. Like, you need this crutch. But to say that crutch is good in itself, or is it's only in the context of your dry leg. So what is better? A working leg.
That's right, a working leg.
So if you understand all of these virtual conversations as a crutch and live conversations, they're a crutch because we don't, our legs.
And that is why, and I think the Orthodox are not alone in this, but I know we were strong in this during COVID. We can't embrace the crutch as a normality. In other words, you can't have liturgy online as a normality.
Yes.
I just might have it as.
I don't believe you can have a liturgy online.
I don't think so either. I don't think it works. I think people try to use it as a crutch.
Yeah, people try to use it as a crutch.
But there was people don't forget that time period. There was a great argument about that, and there were people crying out that we should not do this online. It lost. We did it online. Most every Orthodox church did it online, but now I think we have to come to terms with it.
Oh, that's interesting. Because as you know, the founders, the apostles, went into catacombs and were hunted down by dogs and Roman soldiers to do the liturgy in person. And we got scared of a tiny little virus and went into our own little houses and didn't talk to each other.
I love this. We could get into this. I'm a little nervous to get into it.
Why?
Few rules.
Well, some of those battles of COVID, well, I'm also associated with one of the battlers, my brother. Those battles live on right now underneath the surface of every parish. It's kind of, I don't want to bury them because it's a big thing, but what do you think? Should we
I will
bring them up again?
I think here is a trick. Let's talk not about this particular battle, but any battle, because it's obviously like an
Be a true philosopher. The scalpel right there. You and I are we got hatchets. It's not this battle. Let's talk about battle.
Concept of a battle.
Category of a battle.
Anyway, again, two mistakes. One is to bury the battle, and here is, I think, it's a good way to connect things. And here is, it's this thought I borrowed from Father Patistas in his book Orthodox Ethics. I read it the first time. It's not exactly his thought, but I forgot from which one, but it affects, Holy Fathers, everything in Orthodoxy. Some Holy Father for sure says. But he asked us, he was answering question, what is peace? And what is war, battle, war, conflict, entropy. And he brought up this idea that the true opposition to war is not peace, it's liturgy.
Nice.
How it all relates. If you try to create false peace just to avoid battle, you are not solving the problem. Any battle is a sign that something is broken. If you close your eyes for this breakage, it won't go away. Then the question comes how you battle and for what purpose you battle. And to answer how you battle, here is, I think, is a very important line in Psalms, which is, the Lord hates the one who loves violence. It's from, I think, the 5th or the 10th. Again, correct later or whatever, proper translation. But notice it's at least in Russian translation, it's like this. And notice, it's not like the Lord hates the one who does violence. It's the one who loves violence. But loves. See, it's a very
fundamentally different.
But it looks almost the same.
Almost the same.
But it's fundamentally different. Because if the one loves who does violence, then absolute pacifism, let's just bury everything away and let's just ignore about it. Loving, and what does it mean by loving violence? It means that you might have to do this. So you might have to correct wrongs. You need to face them. You need to die. Something needs to die. Something, it's already dead, or broken, or dying, etc., etc. So you need to have a battle. So if there is a potential or reason for a battle, you can't just look away at it. Same in the family, company, any level of structure. But if for a moment you say loving the process, or let's say doing this, I'm enjoying, or I feel so much righteousness enjoying it, then you already lose it. So the true absolute, what is the one you call royal path, is how to do battle without love.
It's a little like keep your mind in hell.
Kind.
And remember heaven, right?
Kind of this sort. So it's absolutely. It's kind of the same. So this is
because you don't want to embrace. Yeah, but
it's dangerous to love battle for a battle's sake. And that's, let's be honest, it's a very thin line for anybody getting involved. I'm starting to, because it's pride, it's competence, it is a simple domination. Like, let's be real, like it has, like, it speaks to all of the vices. But in the same manner, it is wrong to fall into these vices. Like, while doing it, it's wrong to be covered from battle just because you're afraid you will fall into it. Like that. There is no
Right.
form to.
Well, that also won't fix the problem.
Precisely because it doesn't fix the problem. It just keeps the festering wound. Like, and it just keeps destroying you.
Not to bring it back to the table, but this is very fascinating because there are some tables. Watch tonight. Let's see what happens. There are some tables, and Evans, the Tamadai, you know this too. There are some tables that resist the low toasts, the humility toasts. They don't really like the dead toast. They don't really want to toast, to having you go through the night of suffering. That's one of the toasts, sort of like, the hardships may you pass through. And they like, well, this is a party. What are you doing? And what will happen is that table that resists those
Starts falling apart.
it starts to break apart. And it also becomes Dionysian. They need a cocaine hit to get to the next good toast. Do a dirty joke. And they're trying so hard to avoid the reality, but you don't also want them to embrace. You don't want them to stay down there.
And that's the paradox. And that's
The paradox.
And like, again, gospel where the paradox was covered, this absolute mind-blowing thing. It's where Christ says, like, those who wants to save one soul will lose it.
Yes.
Those who will lose it for my sake will get it. So if you want to save yourself from any battle, you will guarantee to lose it.
That's right.
But if you are brave enough to face it and strong enough to come through it without pride, then you will get.
This conversation right now, do Russians let's just go somewhere. Let's go to Minsk. No, that's in Belarus.
It's a Belarus.
Let's go somewhere in Russia. I don't know. Ufa. You know Ufa?
Yeah, well,
It can get there.
I've never been there. Yeah,
But
but
let's say we were there.
okay.
It's a Tuesday. People are at a coffee shop having fun. Is this stuff on the agenda? These kind of conversations?
Not as much, I think, as it used to be. Not at any coffee shop, but still, it can be there. More like evening in your apartment after third bottle of vodka.
Okay.
That's kind of more like coffee shop. No, like coffee shop. No, not coffee shop.
But people aren't rejecting this as still part of.
In the right environment, no. Like,
But I think it is dwindling.
but it is dwindling. Yeah,
It's the disease of modernity.
yeah. The spreading modernity.
It's where it's spreading everywhere.
I don't want to run anybody down, but I was in Georgia just 2 months ago. The Georgians are adopting and adapting to Western mores. It's normal. I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm observing. But what I did notice, and this is, again, not to run Russians down, there are many Russians in Tbilisi right now, and they are very worldly.
It's false. Like, just here is a little bit context. It's just because it's precisely the most modern Russians came to Georgia after the war started. So it's not a social, like, basically skewed social representation. Like, just to be clear, like, here you have a simple answer. So, like, out of all of the Russian population, the most new world Russian kind of came to Georgia in the last 3 years.
Oh, you're right about that.
Yeah, so
That's helpful.
yeah, that's how. Like, I think it's the most simple.
And that's the only time I really meet Russians who haven't already emigrated to the United States.
Yeah, but the context, the context of the last 3 years. So just it's how it works. So the reason. So Georgia became kind of escape, not for what you love in Georgia, but simply to kind of. It is an interesting topic in itself, but kind of it is this kind of running away, not from battle per se, but you can say from exactly the slow point history itself. This kind of not knowing how to handle it, not being ready to. So the most new world, like, basically, and all new world people, all modern people face. So the most, and you can actually, I think, again, to philosopher, to move from particular to more categorical, I think in time of any conflict nowadays, you will see that the most modern people will kind of run first. So it's just a general.
The modernity is talked about. The concept of modernity is built on the very much philosophical ideas of Immanuel Kant about the eternal peace. So when the eternal peace begins to collapse, as we see or the most modern people, the ones that bought in most into that.
Suffer, yeah. They have heard these suffers. They have no words to express what's happening, why it's happening. Emotion starts like the way it is. Like, why did it happen? Like, who did it? Like, why did you do it? If you start explaining the reasons, you like why, like especially in once you will hear like, why did you do it when it happened? Basically, the Trojan horse Cassandra thing, like this sort of thing. And in a way, this pattern again, it's ancient. You can find it in the Old Testament, etc., etc. Like it's the same. Like we didn't change much from that time. Maybe intensity changed. We didn't in essence, we didn't change in that respect. But
it makes me think that culture. Let's do this right. It makes me think that what we love to categorize as cultural differences, they're really less important than perhaps I want to make them, and that the culture of Christ. Let's go with that. Let's go with the culture of Christ. It's actually sort of the definitive marker. Whenever you get on a plane,
absolutely, because here is the trick. You keep saying the word culture. How often do you remember which word it originates from?
Well, I want to hear this because in English, cult is key to this.
Cult. No, that's what it is. Culture is a derivative from cult. So it's effectively a church. Culture is a church.
Right. And so in some ways, it's not really about what if you're going to be in a cult, it's which one. Right? It's about which one.
Yes, absolutely. That's the question. And that's a terrifying question for a modern man. That's the question we want to avoid.
Did you guys see Maya came in?
Hi, Maya.
Hi, Maya. So the restaurant's starting to populate with people who are putting the Supra and all the food together. Maya, come over. Just poke your head in and say hi. Just come over and say hi. Watch out for wires, though. Guys, this is Maya. Say hi. Come down a little lower. You got to come down a little lower. There you go. Say hi. So here's the thing, Maya. We love you. We got a Supra tonight.
Yes, we do.
So this is Pasha, and this is Andrew,
Nice to meet you.
and we're doing
guys.
this podcast.
I see that.
We're gonna get out of your way, but I'm glad that you were in our frame for a second.
You have
Let's
like,
let me go. We got to get out of the way, right?
you have like
30 seconds.
15 minutes. 15 minutes.
We got to say it out to the restaurant.
Yeah.
So from there,
And that's life. You can run you can fly very high, but then you need to come down to earth.
that's right.
So there's opening.
And here we are. Yeah. Thanks for playing. The nice ideas. Also, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Got to get this restaurant.
I'm like,
So then I'll see you guys tonight. We'll get together at the table.
Yep.
And then maybe you'll stay in town tonight.
maybe we haven't decided yet.
I like that kind of thinking.
But Green or North South Carolina is what 2.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
To Atlanta. It's perfect.
All right. Thanks for being on. Save me a spot at the Supra.
Come join John. Come help out. Check out his restaurant. It's a wonderful place. You will have an unforgettable evening.
That's right. You never know who's going to show up because this is now
He
happening.
didn't even pay us for gas. Just say that.
I'm going to get you guys the gas money. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for being a part of this. God bless you guys. Guys, that's episode 1, maybe 1.5. Pastor Mark was on. We're shooting episodes at the restaurant now, and we're inviting famous people to come join us. Put the word out. 6 degrees of separation. We'd love to have you come join our table tonight, community table, be a part of our work. All of it goes to help First Things Foundation, which of course is helping people around the world. Local people, impresarios, entrepreneurs, people who have great ideas but have no resources. Our guys help facilitate their projects. They live for 2 years. They live hard, and they do it really on behalf of the people they work for, but also because they're on a journey to become better people. And so it's a type of missionary work that doesn't involve tracts and handing out gospel stuff and teaching people about the Bible. We like to think that the people who go actually are images and icons of the very thing found in the Bible. So maybe be one of those people. Join us. This is our podcast. That was Save Me a Spot at the Supra with Andrew and Pavel. I think quite famous Russians these days. Peace to you. See you next time.